So welcome to this lecture number 9. In today's class, we shall discuss about the semiconductor diode characteristics and the qualitative theory of the PN junction. Now, the concept and the theories that we will develop in this lecture is very much important to understand the working of many of the electronic devices such as BJT, bipolar junction transistor, SCR, diac, triac, because all these semiconductor devices they have one or two PN junction or multiple PN junctions. So if we are able to understand this single PN junction, how it works, then we can relate this concept, this theory to any of the electronic device. Fine? Like for example, SCR, it has three junctions and four layers, PN, or for example transistor. A transistor can be NPN or it can be of PNP type. Fine. So basically there are three layers and two junctions. So if we are able to understand this, how it is formed and how the electrons and holes travels in this PN junction under different conditions. Conditions meaning different voltages that we apply across the terminals, and if you are able to figure it out, then we are in a good position to answer any question related to electronic devices. So today's topic, semiconductor diode characteristics and qualitative theory of PN. Now in this lecture we shall learn how PN type junction is formed, and we shall also, if the time permits, we shall also try to learn the volt ampere characteristics, that is the VI characteristics of two terminal device. Now from our previous discussion, we have two materials. One is p-type material, another one is n-type material. Now this material p-type or n-type, they do not exist in isolation. It's not like I have a box of p-type and I have a box of n-type and then I combine it together. No, it's not that way. But for our understanding, we make a statement that we bring p-type and n-type block together. Fine. But it all depends upon how this junction is formed. Now, if I talk about the construction, so here I am having, say, a p-type block, and here I'm having another block. The size has to be the same, n-type block. So this is intrinsic semiconductor doped with pentavalent impurity. Again, intrinsic semiconductor. Sorry, I just made a mistake here. It is a intrinsic semiconductor doped with trivalent impurity, and here this block represent an intrinsic semiconductor that can be of germanium or gallium arsenide or silicon, and that has been doped with pentavalent type impurity, because we know the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor is very small and it is of no use. So what we do here, by diffusing some impurity, that is what is called as doping, we can change the electrical characteristics, we can change the conductivity, uh, and hence the resistivity. Fine. Now, so with this idea, we are having two blocks, p type and n type. Now how this is done, we take a common intrinsic semiconductor, and if donor impurities are introduced into one side and the acceptor impurities are introduced into another side of a single crystal. Fine. At the time of crystal growing, uh, then it is referred to as grown junction. This is just for your information. One is the grown junction. The second one is alloy junction. Now here, in case of alloy type, it is made by melting a small pellet of indium on a slice of n-type germanium or silicon, and this the molten indium, as you know, it is a trivalent impurity, is then absorbed into the germanium or silicon, and thus it produces a p-type material. Okay? And the area where this pellet of indium is in contact with the n-type material is referred to as alloy junction. Okay. The third one, okay, the third type is diffusion type. Now, in this diffusion process, a wafer of semiconductor material, uh, a p-type material, is exposed to a gas of impurity material, say of n-type, and then the atoms of this impurity material diffuse into the semiconductor material to form p-n junction. Now, let me draw this figure. This is just for your information. uh, the underlying fact is that we simply cannot have two blocks, brought together to form p-n junction. There are different techniques by which we achieve this on a common substrate. So let me draw this structure. Now here I'm having two blocks. On left hand side I'm having p-type block, and on the right hand side I'm having n-type region. Now the most important characteristics of, okay, when I join these two blocks, this meeting point is referred to as junction. Okay, so the most important characteristics of this p-n junction is its ability to conduct current in one direction only. So current conducts in only one direction, and it restrains the flow of current in the opposite direction. This is one of the most important property of semiconductor. And in the reverse direction, fine, under reverse bias condition, or what we mean by biasing is just the application of voltages. So when I say this device has got two ends, isn't it? Here this is one end, this is another end. So if I want to make these charges flow, then I have to connect some kind of external voltage, a battery. Fine. So if I connect in the opposite direction, it is referred to as reverse bias. That case we'll take up in the next class. So under reverse bias, due to the minority charge carriers, the current also happens to flow. Fine. But then again, it offers a very high resistance in the reverse direction. Now, how this happens, we'll try to understand. Now, what is the difference between a PN junction and a PN junction diode? Now, this is what right now you see on the screen is a PN junction. Okay. And if we apply a metallic contact here, then it is referred to as PN diode. Fine. PN junction, the theory is related to these two blocks and a junction. And when we have a metallic contact, these contacts are also referred to as ohmic contact. Metallic contacts. And these are the two ends wherein we apply the set of voltages. Okay, so now we are going to have three possibilities here. Now, what are these three possibilities? First one is I'm not going to apply any kind of voltages across these two terminals. Let us mark this as terminal 1 and this as terminal 2. So there are basically two terminals, fine, and it is cylindrical in shape. You might have seen other diode, fine, when you maybe you carried out some practicals the last semester. Now, possibility, the first one is we don't apply any voltage across its terminal, so it is referred to as no bias condition. Fine. Then second case is a forward bias. Now, forward bias is the one wherein the p-type end is connected to the positive polarity and n-type end is connected to negative polarity. So if I take a wire and if I connect it to the positive terminal, this is a battery source here, and the negative terminal is connected to negative terminal of the battery. Just one second. Sorry for the interruption. So we have got two possibilities here. One is no bias, wherein we are not connecting any kind of voltages across the terminals. The second one is forward bias. In case of forward bias, as shown in this diagram, the positive end of the battery is connected to the terminal 1, which is a p-type, and the negative end is connected to the n-type. Okay. The third one is reverse bias. Okay. Now, just 1 second. Again, sorry for the interruption. So we have got three possibilities here: no bias, forward bias, and the reverse bias. Now, what we mean by biasing is basically an application of external voltage across the two terminals. So this term biasing, in simplest sense, it is the application of external voltage across the two terminals. And the behavior of this device is going to be different for a different orientation. For forward bias, it will behave differently. For reverse bias, it will behave differently. Fine. Now here, these are acceptor ions. Acceptor ions. Here, these are holes. This legend is for donor ions, and here what you see is dots. These are electrons. Okay, so basically these are immobile ions. Now what are you referring ions? These are immobile, meaning they cannot move. Okay, they are immobile ions. So in case of trivalent impurity, so this is trivalent, and here this is pentavalent impurity. Now in case of p-type semiconductor, let me write here. In case of p-type semiconductor, which is trivalent, fine, you see the holes are majority charge carrier. They are a majority number as compared to electrons, and electrons we refer to them as minority charge carriers because they are few in number. Whereas in case of n-type semiconductor, which is on account of pentavalent impurity, okay, we have electrons as majority charge carriers and holes as minority charge carriers. Okay, now this concept is very important. So as we don't apply any bias, so when we apply no voltages across the two terminals, then it is called as no bias condition. Fine. So here the majority charge carriers are holes, and here the majority charge carriers are electrons. So when we bring these two blocks together, the concentration gradient will take place, on account of which the holes will try to diffuse in this region. Fine, because the concentration of holes here is less, and here this electron, which are large in number, will try to go into this block or p-type region, and this will continue till we reach an equilibrium, meaning equal distribution of holes and electrons. Okay, we'll take the we'll see the other side of it now. Now to begin with, there exists a concentration gradient, and the holes from the p end will move to the n-type to your right, and the electrons from the right hand side will shift to the or will go into the left hand side, that is a p-type region. Now this majority charge carrier depend upon the impurity, whereas this minority charge carriers, okay, they depend on temperature. Fine. Like for example, uh, in case of intrinsic semiconductor, the electrons gains the thermal energy and they breaks the covalent bond. And here the breaking of covalent bond is not on account of external voltage. Fine. So the minority charge carriers are purely due to the temperature. So now this is the junction what we're having. So it is also referred to as rectifier. So it permits the easy flow of charge in one direction, but restrains the flow in the opposite direction. So now what will happen when we combine this p-type and n-type semiconductor? So the concentration of holes is higher on p side, and because of which we have the concentration gradient. Similarly, the concentration uh, gradient is also observed on the right hand side, because the number of electrons here are more and they will diffuse into p-type region. And so we have this movement of charge carriers through a cross-sectional area A. So this is normally a cylindrical body which will have a cross-sectional area A. So whenever we have this movement of charge carriers across the area, fine, holes as well as electrons, then it is referred to as current. Fine. So it is the movement of charge carriers, movement of charge carriers across the junction under no bias condition. So even if we are not applying any kind of a voltage, but still on account of this concentration gradient, meaning the concentration is not uniform. In one region it is excess, the other region it is minority. So they will try to go in the opposite direction. So this process is referred to as diffusion. And the current due to this process is referred to as diffusion current. Now we can understand this concept from an analogy of pressure difference. So for example, I'm having a region at X having some pressure and another region at location Y with some pressure here, and say the pressure at this particular region at X is greater as compared to the pressure at region Y. So definitely this will result in an airflow from higher pressure to lower pressure. The same phenomena is observed here due to the concentration gradient. Now we have to understand here. See, for example, this, as I said right in the beginning, the holes will try to move in this direction and electrons will try to move in this direction. But this is not a continuous process. Okay. Now a stage is going to come wherein this further movement of holes and electrons will be obstructed. And for that, we need to understand something called as depletion layer. Depletion layer. Now, here, for example, let us consider this hole, okay, and this electron, they are right now parallel, so they will recombine. Okay, this hole and this electron will recombine. This hole and this electron here will recombine. Fine. Now, these are immobile ions. Fine. They cannot move. They are fixed at that particular position. So, and these immobile ions, they are marked as a negative here, acceptors, because they will accept the electrons. And here it is marked, they donate the holes, and here they donate the electrons. So the charge neutrality is maintained here. But here, these immobile ions will surface out. Will surface out. Let me write here a new term. Now, what do we mean by surface out? Now, the electron neutrality what was maintained before the diffusion. Fine. Now, as holes starts combining with electron, we are left with positive and negative ions. Fine. They will combine, these holes and electrons will combine, and we will be simply left with positive and negative ions because of this depletion region. Now, why it is referred to as depletion region? Because in this region what I'm talking about, this region, we don't have any mobile charge carriers because they have recombined. Here there are mobile charge carriers, here there are mobile charge carriers, here holes are charge carriers, here electrons are charge carriers. But when they are brought together, these holes and electrons, they will surface, the ions will surface out. In other words, they will recombine. So we will not have any charge carriers in this region. Fine. They will be depleted of charge carriers. So depleted of free charge carrier. These are free right now. Fine. They are not bounded anything. But here they are depleted of charge carriers. So free of charge carriers, and hence they are referred to as, this region is referred to as depletion region. Depleted of free charge carriers. Fine. A simple concept. And why it is happening? Why are we not having any free charge carriers here? Because the holes and electrons are combining. Fine, they are satisfied. Fine, electron get into the holes, and right now we are not having any free charge carriers. Fine, so it is depleted of free charge carriers. Now, this process is referred to as diffusion, and the current is the diffusion current that we have seen. Now, this diffusion current is very important. We have to use it a lot while solving the numerical problems. And this diffusion current is because of majority charge carriers. Fine. Now, the point to be noted here is that we are not connecting any voltages across the terminals. So this is what is referred to as no bias condition. So even under no bias, there is the movement of holes and electrons. Fine. Now, let us summarize. First point, the holes from the P region, fine, will diffuse into the N region, and they then recombine with the free electrons in the N region. So this is what has been shown in the dashed line, okay, this region, the central region, which is also referred to as depletion region. Different names. Okay, this is referred to as depletion region and represented as W, the width. The second point, first point we have discussed about the holes. The second point, the free electrons from the N region. So right here is to your right is the N region. The free electrons from the N region will diffuse into the P region, and these electrons then recombine with the holes. Right? So this is from the electrons point of view. Now this diffusion of holes This diffusion of holes from p region to n region and electrons from n region to p region takes place due to the thermal energy, and also because there's a difference in their concentration in the two regions that results in the concentration gradient, meaning the concentration is not uniform. In simple words, the p region has more number of holes and n region has more number of electrons. Fine. Now, if I go by this theory, what will one expect? That all these electrons right from here, the inside region, will come into this region p type and they will recombine. Fine, but this is not going to happen. Now why? Fine, if it so happens, okay, just take for example, we can visualize, or one can expect, like, all the holes in the p region and the free electrons in the n region, they flow towards each other and combine. So in that case, what will happen is all these holes and free electrons will be eliminated. Fine, this is one can expect to happen, but it will not happen. Why? In practice, this is not going to be it's not going to happen in practice, in reality. Now, this diffusion of holes and free electrons across the junction occurs for a very short time. Fine, it occurs for a very short duration. After few recombination of holes and electrons in this neighborhood region of the junction, let us, this is the neighborhood region, okay. Here, this is the neighborhood region. So after this few recombination of holes and electrons in this neighborhood of the junction, a restraining force is set up automatically. Fine, and this force is referred to as barrier. Now, how it all happens? So if you can understand this concept, you can understand any concept in analog electronics. But if you fail to understand this important point, then it becomes tough to understand the further lectures. So here, this, on account of recombination of electrons and holes, they will be depleted of charge carriers, and we will left with a layer of a positive immobile ion and a layer of negative immobile ion. Okay, we're going to have two layers. Okay, let me write here. Now this is the layer 1 of negative immobile ions, and this acts as another layer of positive or positively charged immobile ions. Fine. Now this layer now, okay, this layer now acts as a barrier. Okay, now how it acts as a barrier? As we have discussed, this region, okay, we have marked it as positive. Fine, positive, it is positively charged immobile ions. Fine, these holes are also positively charged. Fine, now these holes will be repelled by this region, so there won't be any further movement of holes from p type to n type. So this acts as a gate, a barrier. So we are coming across another term. I'm writing here barrier. Okay, similarly here, this region, in the depletion region, fine, has a negative layer of a layer of negatively charged immobile ions. Fine, negatively charged electrons are negatively charged, so these electrons will be repelled by this plate. Fine, so it will stop the further diffusion of electrons into this region. Clear? To begin with, we had two blocks, p type and n type. Majority charge carriers are holes here. Here, the majority charge carriers are electron. When they are brought together, these holes and electrons recombine. So in this region, we will be left with no free charge carriers, and because they have recombined, they have settled. But then what we are left with? We are left with two regions. One is negatively charged region, one is positively charged region. Why this is why this is positive? Because it has left the electron, it become positive. Why this is marked as a negative? It is accepting the electron. Fine. This is how we denote the acceptor and donor ions. Fine. So here in this region, we don't have any free charge carriers, but we are left with a simple two layers. One is a negative, one is with a positively charged immobile ion. This will create an electric field. An electric field moves from plus to minus. So this is how the electric field is represented with capital E. Okay, this will set up an electric field. Now this region is referred to as depletion region. Now in this region, purposely I have not shown the free carriers. Fine. This what we mark as the depletion region. Also referred to as transition region or space charge region. Fine. This what you see here are the holes which are majority charge carriers in p-type region, and here what you see are the electrons, which is also a majority charge carrier for n-type region. Clear? Now these are acceptor ions and these are donor ions. Fine. Now we can also have a minority charge carriers here. In case of p-type semiconductor, the holes are majority charge carriers, but on account of thermal agitation, we can have minority charge carriers, that is electrons. Fine. Now here electrons are minority charge carriers, and here likewise we can show one or two holes which are minority charge carriers. These are holes. Okay, a simple concept. Now, and I forgot to mention, this is the junction. This is also referred to as metallurgical junction. Why it is referred to as metallurgical junction, we'll discuss in the next class. Now, this positive layer, fine, will repel the positive holes, and this negative layer will repel the negative electrons. Now, the question is why this depletion region width is fixed. Why it does not keep on increasing? And the reason is this: repulsion of holes by this layer and repulsion of electron by this particular layer. And accordingly, we are going to have a potential difference, also referred to as barrier potential, develop on account of electric field due to this plus and minus region, and this is how the electric field is represented. So this potential which is getting developed across this depletion region, fine, is acting as a barrier for further movement of free charge carriers. Fine. So again, just let me revise this. Some of these holes in the p region and some of the electrons in the n region diffuse towards each other and recombine. Fine. And that's the reason why I have not shown the holes and electrons in this particular region, which is referred to as depletion region. So each recombination will eliminate a hole and a free electron. Fine. That is what is called as recombination. So in this process, the negative acceptor ions, these are the acceptor ions, negative acceptor ions in the P region and positive donor ions in the N region are left uncompensated. Now, if additional holes trying to diffuse into the N region are repelled by this positive charge of the donor ion here, fine. And the electron, these are the electrons which try to diffuse into the P region are repelled by the negative charges on the acceptor ions. As a result, total recombination of electrons and holes cannot occur. So the fifth point, we had seen 4 points here. Fine. The fifth point, or let me write here only, the total recombination of holes and electrons cannot occur. Okay. Now, this region, fine, containing the acceptor and donor ions is referred to as depletion region. That is, there is depletion of mobile charge carriers, that is holes and electrons. So we don't have any free charge carriers here in this region. And this region has immobile meaning fixed ions which are electrically charged. So it is also referred to as space charge region. These terms are very important. Space charge region. First, it is referred to as depletion region because it is devoid, meaning depleted of any carriers. And second, these ions are electrically charged. Fine. So it is referred to as space charge region. Now, the electric field between this acceptor and the donor ions is referred to as barrier. Fine. And normally we mark this in a x direction. So it will have some units, distance. So the physical distance from one side of the barrier to the other side is referred to as width of the barrier. Fine. It will have some width of the barrier. And this potential difference between the two is referred to as the height of the barrier. Now this is important from the numericals point of view. We're going to solve one or two numericals here in today's class. Now with no external batteries connected here, we are not connecting any kind of external power supply. So with no external batteries connected, the barrier height is of the order of 10th of a volt. Okay. For silicon PN junction, this barrier which exists in this region is 0.7 volt, whereas for germanium, this barrier is approximately 0.3 volt. Now, can you recollect these figures? You might have come across these voltages, 0.7 and 0.3. Now, what is the significance of these two voltages? See, I've gone very slow for this lecture. This is the basic, the fundamentals. If I recollect the VI characteristics, fine, VI, or what is the setup? You might have done the experiment. What we do is we vary the voltage across the diode and check out the current passing through the diode. Now this is called as independent axis, and this is referred to as, sorry, this is dependent axis, and here this is independent axis. That means this value of current depends upon the voltage. Fine. If I interchange the two, if I take I here and V here, the plot will be different. But then what is the meaning of it? In that case, if I take I here, this voltage is a function of I, meaning the voltage will depend upon the current passing through it. So the independent uh, element is always plotted in the x direction. Fine. So what it means is the current passing through the diode will depend upon the what voltage we are applying across the two terminals of the diode. This is a simple diagram for this. You might have done this as an experiment. This is how we denote the diode. This is the milliammeter, and then normally we connect 1K resistor to limit the current. This is the variable, and voltmeter here. Fine. Now the point what I'm trying to make you understand is what is the significance of this 0.7. If I take a silicon diode, this silicon diode will not conduct until and unless you supply it with 0.7 volt. So initially the current will be very less. Okay, at 0.7 it will start to conduct heavily. Fine. Now how this 0.7 comes into picture? Because of this barrier, because of this depletion region, because of this space charge region. Clear? The height is referred to as barrier height. Fine, it has to overcome this much of a voltage. If it is germanium, fine, this the it will restrain up to 0.3 volt. The moment we give a voltage of 0.3, this will break down, and then will be tremendous amount of movement of these electrons and holes. So heavy current is going to pass through this block. I hope this is clear. Fine. Initially, I start from 0 volt. There won't be any current conduction. Electrons will travel if I connect P to positive and N to negative. Okay. So the conventional flow of current will be what? It is always shown from plus to minus. This is the conventional flow of current. Conventional. Fine. How the electrons are moving? Electrons are moving in this direction because we are connecting this terminal to a negative voltage. So these electrons being negative in nature, they will be repelled. So they will be forced to move in this direction, isn't it? So electrons move in this direction. So if I look at this figure, the conventional flow of current is from the left to the right, and the flow of electrons is from the right to left. So it is always opposite. So current, the conventional flow of current is shown always opposite to the flow of electron. This is very much important when we consider the current flow or the direction in NPN and PNP transistors. We simply cannot connect any random way the batteries. Fine, it will there are different region, active region, saturation region, then cutoff region. You might have studied the fundamentals. So it all depends upon how the transistor is the same, the battery is also the same, but how it works differently when we connect with a different polarity. As I said, like its entire performance is getting changed, electrical characteristics are getting changed. Fine. So I hope now you people have understood what is the significance of this 0.7 or 0.3. If I connect 0.5 voltage across a silicon diode, it will not work. Why? To make this device on, it will take, see, nobody works for free. Okay, now in this case silicon, it will demand give me some 0.7 volt, then only I'll work for you. then only I'll make the current to conduct. So it will demand something here. Fine. In simplest word, if I am taking germanium will demand zero point 0.3 for itself. The moment that zero point 0.3 voltage is given to him, he is satisfied and he will make the gates open. Fine. So this is silicon germanium. I hope you should never forget this now. How this zero point 0.7 and zero point 0.3 comes into picture. Now this 0.7, 0.3, it depends upon the donor concentration, intrinsic concentration, and towards the end of this lecture, we will come to this value. How we are getting this 0.7 and 0.3, that depends upon the equation of barrier potential, and that derivation we'll do in the next class. Fine. This is for your understanding. So this point is clear to everyone. The sixth point. What was the sixth point? Here. Okay. We have covered five points. Total recombination of electrons and holes cannot occur. Now, let us try to understand the sixth point. They're all related. Fine. These are not physically point. It is like, we go level by level. We'll maintain that chronology. So the region containing the uncompensated acceptor and donor ions is referred to as depletion region. Here, this is the depletion region. Okay. So they are depleted of a mobile charge carrier, that is holes and electrons. So they are also referred to as space charge region, and with no external batteries, okay, connected, the barrier height is of the order 10th of, okay, we had discussed this. If I don't apply any voltages across the terminal, then this barrier potential is 0.7 for silicon and 0.3 for germanium. So this is the sixth point. Let me write here. The barrier voltages for silicon, it is 0.7 volt, and for germanium it is 0.3 volt. Fine. So we are still into the first slide. Now here, last point to consider. This will be now 7 point. Okay. Now this barrier is somewhat, it's like a gate which will oppose. This barrier discourages the diffusion of majority carriers across the junction. It will stop the further movement of electron and hole travel. Hole are positively charged, and here I'm having a positive region. So repulsion, negative. So electrons will be discouraged. But what happens to the minority carriers? If you recollect, I have drawn here. Okay, in P region, on account of thermal agitation, we can have few number of electrons. Okay, we can also show it here in this region, or holes here. Okay, now there are a few free electrons in the P region and few holes in the N region. Now this barrier helps these minority carriers to drift across the junction. Now recollect the definition, diffusion and drift. For diffusion, both are related to the movement of free charge carriers. For diffusion, we are least bothered about the voltages across its terminal. It is purely depending upon the concentration gradient, meaning if we don't have the equal number of holes and electrons, if they are not uniform, then it so happens that the holes which are majority charge carrier or max in number in the P region will try to go into the N region. Electrons are more in the N region, so they will diffuse into the P region. On account of this, fine, it will create a current which is referred to as diffusion. Fine. But on account of this process, as I've said, like it is, it is not a never ending process. After some time, it will create a barrier for itself and it will further allow the movement of electrons and holes. That is the depletion region. So this depletion region has got static charges. Fine. So it will create an electric field which will further discourage the movement of electrons and holes. That means all these electrons and holes will not recombine. Some will remain as it is in their regions. Okay. Now, On account of this depletion region, we are going to have a electrical field setup, which will give rise to a potential barrier. Potential barrier, what we have seen for silicon, it is 0.7, for germanium, it is 0.3. Fine. Now, this voltage, this negative sign here will attract this electron, holes, sorry. This negative sign will attract this hole. They are minority in number, but their polarities are opposite, so they will attract. Similarly, there are electrons here which are minority, which are less in number, but they will be attracted by positive sign. So due to this barrier potential, due to this electric field, fine, this barrier will help the minority carriers to drift across the junction. To drift across the junction. I hope this is clear. Earlier, we had started our discussion purely with diffusion. This diffusion is due to the concentration gradient of any semiconductor junction, that it conducts heavily in one direction and it opposes the flow of current in the opposite direction. So let us consider this as a whole immobile ion with a hole. Okay, this is the hole, and this is immobile ion. Fine. Now, if this hole combines with the electron, fine, then we have a immobile ion with a negative charge. So this is represented as immobile ion with a negative charge. This is what we have shown here. Fine. And similarly, if we're having immobile ion with electron, then we're going to have a similar condition. And this is represented as plus. Now, why do this carrier, okay, has negative charge, and why do this carrier has a positive charge? Okay, negative and positive here. Here there are free carriers. Once they recombine, okay, we call it as a surface out or uncompensated, and we simply show it with the n circle minus or n circle plus notation here in this region. Here, this same region, fine, the depletion region. Now, the hole is a positively charged, and this immobile ion is losing one hole, fine. So it will have a negative charge on it. It is losing one hole, so, fine. So on the other hand, the electron is negatively charged, and this E plus O ion is losing an electron, so it will have a positive charge. Clear? So it is losing out one electron, and here it is gaining one electron. So electron is incoming here, and here electron says outgoing. So there will be one less number of electron. So the net positive charge will be, normally it is neutral, fine, the atom is neutral, but it is giving away one electron. So its net positive charge will be more. So we represent it by a plus, and here it is accepting one electron. So its net negative charge will be more. So this is why we are representing it as minus, fine, plus and minus. So in the depletion region, on P side here, this is the P side. On P side layer, we have negative charged immobile ions, and on N side we have, that is on N side we have positive charged immobile ions, fine, and they are depleted of charge carriers. So this is what is referred to as uncovering of immobile ions. Uncovering of immobile ions. Now, let me draw this diagram again. So here we're having a junction, and this is the depletion region with W. Fine, this is P-type region, and this is N-type region over here. Now, if I plot, then here there will not be any electric field. Fine. So if there is no why there is no electric field here? Because this is electrically neutral. Here only in this region we have electric field marked as plus and minus, which goes in this direction. Fine. So this electric field exists only in this region. So since there is no electric field here in the region 1, let us mark this as region 1 and this is region 2. Okay. So here, since there is no electric field, the voltage will be 0. And now here, as we move in the direction opposite to the electric field, okay, a voltage will be generated. Okay, by the time it reaches here, it will be the maximum at this point. Fine. And again here it is electrically neutral, so it will not contribute to any voltage. So this is how the plot will look like. Barrier potential. So this is what is referred to as barrier potential or built-in potential. Okay. Some textbook use the notation VB. In some textbook, you will find this as the notation for built-in potential. Now, how do we, what we can conclude from this graph? If a hole has to move from this direction to this direction, sorry, from this direction towards the region 2, it has to overcome this much of a voltage. So if it has to reach somewhere here, there is a, just one second, somebody has joined. Move in this direction towards the region 2, then it needs some energy. Fine. How much is that energy? This energy is equivalent to voltage. This is what I'm plotting voltage with respect to distance x. Fine. This is a physical, this is a device. Fine. So it will have some physical dimension, okay, with respect to x. Now if this hole has to move here, fine, in that case it will require this much of energy. If this hole has to reach here, then it requires this much of energy. But what is the point here? This hole has to move to the other region, so it has to break this depletion region. Okay, it has to penetrate to this, so it has to have this much of a voltage. Fine. Similarly, the electron. So electron will require 0.7 volt to reach at this position. So the expression is given as VB equals to KT by E natural log of Na Nd by Ni square. In the second half of this lecture, we are actually going to derive this. Now, why I'm stating the equation right in the beginning? Because this built-in potential, okay, it depends on what? K is a Boltzmann constant. It is fixed, constant. E is the charge on electron. Let me write this as value. Boltzmann constant. The value is 1.3806 into 10 to the power minus 23 joules per Kelvin. Fine. Charge on an electron is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulombs. Now this is the absolute temperature, and at room temperature this is 273 plus 27 is the room temperature degree Celsius. So it is 300 degree Kelvin. So this is constant. Fine. Natural log of Na Nd upon Ni square. So what I can conclude from this expression, mathematical expression, is that the value of Vb is a function of, okay, temperature, but then for most of the case we are going to take it as 300. So this will retain me a constant value. So this barrier potential or built-in potential will depend upon Na, Nd and Ni square. Understood? Na is what? The acceptor ion concentration. This is donor concentration, and Ni is the intrinsic carrier concentration. So nowhere here the applied voltage is appearing. Fine. Nowhere here E is appearing. So it is independent of applied voltage. So in this diagram, we have not applied any voltage across the terminal. In this expression, you don't get to see any voltage term, external applied voltage term. So this barrier potential is independent of externally supplied voltage. Right? Now this can be also written as Vt ln Na Nd by Ni square. Now this Vt is referred to as thermal voltage. And what is this Vt? It is Kt by E. So let me substitute K is 1.3806 into 10 to the power minus 23, and temperature is, say, room temperature 300 degree Kelvin, divided by 1.6 into 10 to the power minus of 19. So this will get me a value of 0.026 volts at room temperature, which is equal to 26 millivolt. So whenever in the problem statement you have this word room temperature and you are told to find out the value of VB, okay, don't replace, don't substitute a K and T by E every time. You can straight away write this as 26 millivolts. Fine. And for any other temperature, this is at 300 Kelvin. So here, fine. This is for temperature T equals to 300 degree Kelvin. Now, sometimes it is asked like, compare the barrier potential at 300 degree Kelvin and if it is increases to 400 degree Kelvin, then we have to make a slight modification in this equation. It will be Vt Kt by E. Okay, so I can write this as T K by E, where T will be 273 plus T. Now, if it is room temperature, we take this as 27 and divided by K by E. So you have the value of K here, Boltzmann constant, and here is the value of E. So in that case, this becomes 273 plus T prime 11,600. So to just substitute this value of T prime. Okay, this is about the barrier potential. So the point here, the important point here is the barrier potential is independent of your applied external voltage, because in this expression, nowhere that value of V is appearing. Fine. Now, in fact, I had planned for 3 numericals, but we'll just take one numerical for this class. Consider a silicon PN junction at room temperature. Okay. So room temperature. So directly we can take that Vt as 26 millivolts. Fine. Doped at Na. Na value is mentioned in the P region. Na is the acceptors. So in the P region we have the acceptors, and in the N region we have the donors, where they are donating the electrons. Fine. Na and D values are given. Intrinsic carrier density is 1.5. So the value of Na is given. Calculate the built-in potential. Now here it is mentioned as silicon, and from our theoretical background we know that for silicon this built-in potential is near about 0.7 volt. Fine. This is from our theoretical background. If it is a germanium, these two values will be different, and we will have answer near about 0.3 volts. Clear? So let us start with the problem. Solution. Given data, Vt thermal voltage is kT by E. So we need not substitute all these values again and again. So you can write this as 0.026 volts. Na is 10 to the power 16 per centimeter cube, and D equals to 10 to the power 17 per centimeter cube. Intrinsic, so it is Ni equals to 1.5 into 10 to the power 10 per centimeter cube. Fine. And what is asked is calculate the built-in potential, that is VB. So let me write the expression VB equals to Vt natural log Na Nd by Ni square. Fine. This is the formula. So let me substitute the values. Vt is 0.026 log of 10 to the power 16 into 10 to the power 17 divided by 1.5 into 10 to the power 10 is to power 2. So 0.026 into 10 to the power natural log of 10 to the power 33, 16 to 33 divided by 1.5. The square is 2.25 into 10 to the power 2. So 20. So this is 0.026 natural log of 20, 30, 10 to the power 13 divided by 2.25. So if you solve this value is fine, 0.026 into this comes out to be 29.123. So the answer is VB is 0.757 volts at room temperature. So from theoretical background, we know that the value of VB for silicon is 0.7 volt, and with the given data is we can validate that the built-in potential for silicon is 0.757 volts at room temperature. Fine, I hope this is clear. So nowhere in this expression the biasing is appearing, meaning the voltage which is applied across the terminal is appearing. So the barrier potential is independent of the applied external voltages.